Let's start with Adam in Tennessee. Adam, you're live with Eric and Jamie.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. Good to speak with you.
Hey, good to talk to you.
Thanks for coming on.
What do you want to talk about?
So basically, I wanted to just go over the secular view on morality. Mike Winger and Scholar Fiction had a great talk on it. But I almost want to say Christian morality does not exist. So I want to kind of go with that and see if you guys maybe agree with my assessment.
So before we start, on the call screener here, you're marked as a theist. Do you believe that a God exists?
No, I said I was a deist. I'm an agnostic deist.
Okay.
Maybe they misheard deist as theist. So no, I'm not a sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify before someone said, I believe in a God and he's the source of everything, but also morality without him.
That would be a very different conversation.
It's possible a God or gods exist, and I think it's impossible that the Christian God exists. And I don't think we need to tie morality to God.
Okay, well, I agree.
Cool.
And I think the biggest thing, this is what killed me, and I'll give you my premise right here, and then you guys can tell me if you agree or disagree, is I would say morality is like taste. There is no thing that maps in the real world to taste. There is no thing that you can touch that is taste. There is no absolute taste. You can't talk about, well, there has to be a tastiest cake for taste to exist. There does not have to be absolutes. So when I thought about my definition of morality, morality is the assessment of an action by an individual regarding the consequences of said action with a goal objective. And that's a lot right there. But then I thought about taste. Taste is the assessment of an oral stimulus by an individual regarding the overall stimulus with regard to an objective, whether it be salty, sweet, bitter. You think about the objective when we create something like the taste with an objective.
That's an interesting viewpoint. So I think it's complex. Jamie, I don't want to run over you if you had a thought, but I've got.
I would say it's interesting. You use the phrase, I think it maps to taste. I would say it's certainly analogous with taste in some ways, but there's a way of evaluating sort of objectively what should be the more or less, moral action. Which is based on certain criteria, what its effect on, human beings is. Whereas in order to get exactly the same thing out of taste, you would have to argue that there's some sort of taste qualia, or like an inherent property of sweetness that exists outside of a being experiencing it. But it's interesting that you say that, because it is something that human beings can come to different or slightly different ideas about what tastes good or what tastes bad. But the idea of communicating, oh, this tastes sweet, oh, this is too sweet for me, oh, this is salty, and our ability to measure, the natural human responses to those is a good way of explaining at least how you can start to have a system that everyone can understand that doesn't have an external objective factor to it. So I would say that's an excellent analogy. Thank you for thinking of it, and I will definitely borrow it.
I actually...
And I think it goes deeper.
Well, I actually want to kind of draw I want to draw a distinction here.
Oh, bring it.
Right? So there's the difference between is and ought, right? And so when we're talking about morality, right, we can say something is moral, right? Because if I would, in this case, say that the moral action is the action that you can take that comports to causing the most human well-being, right? And obviously that's a tentative, if I need to workshop that, I can. But if it is an action that is taken to cause the most good, I would say that is a moral action. But to say that a thing is moral, or to say that one should do a thing because that's the moral choice, right? That's where it gets really weird. That's where it gets really weird because, I know we've talked about it on the show a lot, but everybody's operating with different tools in their toolbox as far as, how they decide what is good or bad about the world around them, right? So Jamie's qualia assessment is a good one there. But I just want to draw that line, right? That to say that a thing is, I think we absolutely can, because, I mean, we can all be armchair quarterbacks, right? We can sit back and look at a individual event and look at all of the different options and then pick the best option from among those. But to say that you should, in a given situation, do X when you don't know or don't have everything surrounding X, it gets really rough. And so I think that gets to a really sticky place. And I would be careful about using that analogy to make that broader point.
Well, I think there's two big things I want to point out here, and I really appreciate you guys' thought and critique of this, because when you mentioned good and what is good, good is an action that leads towards the goal. That's how I define what good is, like a good action. And if you talk about just playing chess, if you're playing chess and your goal is to win, all moves that lead to victory are good moves. Whereas if you're playing chess and your goal is to teach a child, the good moves are the moves that push a child to advance their thinking. You don't want to beat them so profoundly that they can never win. You don't want to make it so easy that they never learn. Good moves are ones that put them in situations that progress their thinking. So what is the goal? And then it changes what good is. And that's kind of where I bring it back to the taste analogy, because not everyone's going to have the same goals and not everyone's going to have the same taste. I think about that paper we used to taste back in the 90s, and you go into school, maybe they're still doing it these days, and you taste that paper to see if you taste bitterness.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Help me apply that last piece though, because I'm kind of still, I'm not there yet, right? You said when you're teaching a child in chess, right, you don't want to wipe the floor with them, and I agree that you don't want to, although other people, I
was going to say,
other people will say, "Get good, scrub."
I was going to say,
but in that scenario, hold on, I'll give it to you in just a second, Jamie. In that scenario, you're competing, and I guess I don't know where you would get somebody out good doing other people in a competition where you would worry about outgooding someone. You know what I mean?
Well,
I'm just wondering how
really
it follows.
briefly here. And the thing is we all have different goals. That's why we view good differently. Where in one society they might say, well, you think about, not to bring up slavery in the Civil War, they're like, no, we need our society to have the people to do this. And obviously slavery is horribly wrong, but they saw it as a good because it helped them, and which we have a much better understanding of morality now. And but they're like, no, this helps us. This is good. This is our goal, is to provide for our families, and this leads to that, which I do not hold those values. So there's a lot that goes into what is good. It goes to your values and everything on how you perceive your goals. So what is your goal, and what are you willing to do for that goal? And when you assess it as a whole, because you have to look at the things beyond just, okay, this helps my family, I can't just steal. I don't know, it goes bigger.
Okay, so here's what I will say about that as an analogy, is that there's some parts missing as far as your evaluation of why the Confederate States believed that slavery was the way to go. Setting aside for half a moment the needed clarification that no, it wasn't about states' rights. They said so explicitly. It was about them doing what they would justify as God's work and the natural law by enslaving what they saw as lesser peoples. So not only was it good for them, they said, but it was good for the slaves because the slaves inherently needed masters, is part of what they claimed, which is a good way of linking heinous and unsupportable ideas about how, well, human beings are inherently different based on these socially defined differences, as far as that being dangerous if you're trying to prevent unequal treatment. But other than that, yes, it's certainly interesting as far as moral systems and even religions that co-opt or develop or try and develop moral codes and how those get applied to the world, right? So adding a second example to your example, because while I just wanted to point out there's a bit more to what the Confederate States thought as far as why they justified slavery. It wasn't that they were ignoring, oh, well, this is bad for the slaves. It's that they said that it was good. The Empire of Japan, prior to World War II, the official religion, for example, of the military of the Empire of Japan was Zen Buddhism. which perfectly facilitated, was more than sufficient to facilitate their brutal, inhuman treatment of other peoples and their conquering, which I do my best to bring up anytime anyone says, oh no, not all religions, Buddhism is super great. It's like, no, your yoga studio is great. I'm getting a little bit off in the weeds, but I wanted to say there are other kinds of examples that you can add to your sort of collection that point to holes. But I would say there's an inherent danger in trying to use elaborate analogies, which is that analogies eventually fail. But they're a good way of explaining a specific point.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if you guys wouldn't mind, can I give you the best atheist argument that everyone should be using to end the call?
Yes, if we get to talk to you a little bit about why you're a deist.
Oh, okay. Sure, I'll do that.
Okay.
So
all right.
I'll give you the best. We won't end the call here, but I'll give you the best atheist argument. You don't have to reply to it, but I heard this from an apologist, and it's the best one. So an atheist walked into a sandwich shop, and he can't get his ham sandwich. And he says, the ham sandwich not given to me proves there is no God. There might be people in the chat or online who get the joke, who hear this afterwards, but it's horrible, and I can't believe an apologist actually said it. Anyways, you wanted to hear about me being a deist?
Yeah, not getting the ham sandwich proves to me that there is no God.
It's a master apologist type level argument.
It sounds like a masturbatory argument. I don't know about a master apologist argument, but I might need to break it down further.
Would you like the background on it real quick, or switch to the deism argument?
I'd like to switch to the deism just because
the deist argument
this
on
feels
the air.
like a rabbit hole that
Send us an email or reach out to us on our social media and explain the joke. And if you would like to know what the hell the joke is, you can also go to our social media where we will post the answer.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. Okay, so from what you said you're an agnostic deist. Is that about right?
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
So to my understanding, the thing that separates us is that you're operating on the assumption that a God exists and I'm not, right?
Correct. I'm trying to make sure with the gumball analogy, I definitely withhold all, you don't control your beliefs. And I really don't believe I have any strong belief in there being a God or no God. I don't actively believe one. It's almost like it's not used in my daily life. But then when it comes down to, if someone pressed me and said, well, do you think there really is a God? I would say, well, there's a lot about this universe we don't understand. I know this sounds like God of the gaps. Mm-hmm. So I can't say a God does or does not exist. And what I choose to believe in, if I have to believe in something, is a maximum God. And I know that.
Okay, so
I'm trying to
let me jump in right there, because you sound like a person who is one click or half a click away from going, you know what? I don't really believe this, because there are a couple of things you've said. If I was pressed to say what I believe in, and well, if I have to believe in something, that lead me to this sort of evaluation of about where you are as far as your belief in a God that doesn't interact with the world but is somehow existent, which is generally what I understand deists to believe. Quick side note, is that something close to what you're describing?
Close enough, and then the God is such a nebulous term.
Okay, so if God is a nebulous term that can mean many things, why would you say that you are a deist, a person that believes in this kind of God, if you don't use it in your day-to-day life? Well, there are things that you don't know about the world, but if you're pressed to say what you do believe in and you have to believe in something, then you believe in a God that doesn't interact with the world, and things that you can't detect being you can't tell the difference between that and a thing that doesn't exist. So when you're pressed to believe in something that you don't use in your day-to-day life, you give the answer of, well, I believe in a thing that's indistinguishable from non-existence, is kind of what it sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, I know it's pretty ludicrous. It might just be the implantation of religion at a young age.
Sure.
Could be. I don't know how I would think if I was raised differently, but many of us, started off very, very young with religion.
Yeah,
It's true.
It sounds like you have all the tools. Just
Thank you.
Hey, man. But just take your time. At this point, I don't see any incentives to hold on to a belief when there's no reason, to expect that belief is true. But then again, it's not like we have a huge amount of incentives on our side either. I guess the only difference is with burden of proof. Because if you're saying, I think that there's something out there, then there has to be something that you're holding on to where that can live. I mean, logically, there has to be something where you go, this is sufficient for me to determine that this God belief is true. Otherwise, you're just lying to yourself. And in either case, it's okay as long as you're evaluating it rationally. And it sounds like you are. Just know that the pool's warm. It's nice in here. It's okay.
Don't worry. I've been a huge secular fan for a long time. I've been involved with many random groups here and there. But I'm definitely a friend to the atheists, and I'm just the weird fence sitter who has read the Bible way too much, and and the other books too. Because the Bible's most often in our society. But I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate what you're doing, and I'll let you get on some more calls.
So here, before you hop off there.
Sure.
Can we count on you calling back next week? Because I feel like having
Good.
slightly more of a conversation about your belief, we might actually come to an interesting place.
Sure. Well, I can give you just a very small background on myself real quick, and then maybe I'll come back next week. But I come from a Catholic Jewish family, and to make matters even worse, I went to a Baptist school, so Pope's the Antichrist and the Jews killed Jesus. So that didn't work out for me too well there. Kind of found myself doubting religion when a street preacher pointed at me and said, "Are you saved?" So I would like to thank a street preacher for the one who pushed me away from religion or had me start analyzing my own self. And through those many, many years of reading more books than just the Bible, I've come to find that we're moreover just products of our environment to a certain extent, and I wish to kind of have some autonomy and push myself away from that. And this is where I've kind of found myself kind of floating out there being an agnostic deist.
Well, cheers, man. I'm glad you called in, and you are a friend to us as well. We want to track your journey. Thank you. We want to track your journey, and that'll be fun to watch. Thank you. Anything else, Jamie?
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Yeah, I'm good. All right.
Take care.
Talk to you next week.